Come, spell weavers, reavers, rogues, and men-at-arms, and answer the call of adventure. Pick up your sword, your axe, your spellbook, your bow, your rulebook, and your dice, and join the forces of good in their eternal fight against vile monsters, conspiring min-maxers, horny bards, and blood-soaked murder hobos. Discover the treasure trove of role-playing games here on Rollin Bones. My name is Ryan Howard, and I shall be your guide. Good evening, Boneheads, and welcome back to Rollin Bones with Ryan Howard, where we are making old school young again. I'm your host and king of the Boneheads, Ryan Howard, and joining me on this very special Monday night edition of Rollin Bones is the one and only T-shirted historian. So we'll be having a great conversation. I've been looking forward to this one for a little bit. T-shirted and I have been swimming in similar circles, but have not ever had a conversation ourselves. So I'm looking forward to where the evening will bring us. But before that, I want to remind everyone to like, share, and subscribe if you are enjoying what you see here on Rollin Bones. I want to tell other people, how to find the show. That's one of the best ways to do it. Give us a little algorithm bump there. That's very helpful. Also want to remind everyone that you can find us over on various social media. You can find me on X and Instagram at Howard_Ryan Gregg. You can find me on YouTube or Rollin Bones. Twitch is twitch.tv/RollinBonesRyan. And Substack is rollinbones.substack.com. Substack is where you can go to find all of my rantings and ravings and other assorted nonsense opinions on role-playing games. It's also where you'll be able to go for development diaries on my forthcoming Guts and Glory projects. I am very much looking forward to giving everyone more information on those. We're doing a small promotional tour here coming up in the next couple months, just to let you guys know that that's out there. And me and Wonky are over the moon excited to show you guys what we've been working on. So Substack's a great place to find all those updates. Also want to remind everyone that if you want to buy Rollin Bones merch, you can do so over on TeePublic, the link to which you will find in the comments and here in chat. And without further ado, that is it for all of my plugs. I want to remind everyone to follow Mr. T-Shirted Historian over on X at T-Shirted1. And without further ado, let's bring him on, the host of The Week in Geek, the host of Tuesday with Geeks, the one, the only casually dressed T-Shirted Historian. Welcome to Rollin Bones.
Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. How are you?
Well, getting over a little bit of illness, but other than that, I'm having a pretty decent time.
Good. That's good. And thank you for agreeing to do this on a holiday weekend of all weekends. I know this is typically a busy time for a lot of people, so I'm glad that we could work this out.
Yeah, me too. This is kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So every time we have a new guest on the show, we got to ask these introductory questions that everyone gets asked when they come on. So let's begin at the beginning here. T-Shirted, how did you get into role-playing games?
Well, let's see. It's kind of funny. First, I want to say I was at least maybe 8 or 9 years old, and we were at this little grocery store thing, like a Mundens or something. Mm-hmm. I don't think they even exist anymore. But they had a big stack of these, role-playing games of all different kinds, and they were more like board games, and they had like a bunch of miniatures with them. And damn, if I wish I still had it to be able to look it up, because I've looked for them on the net since then, and I can't find out where the figures came from, where the sets came from, where any of that stuff came from. But one day, I just kind of, whined enough of it at my mom that she bought me one of those things and took it home and, promptly started painting all the little lead pieces and maybe, kind of started my path to insanity by handling actual lead miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
But, such was the way back then. And I really didn't know what I was doing with that stuff, but it was really cool. I mean, the little miniatures looked really cool. The idea of the whole thing looked really cool. And of course it was way above my grasp. So, I didn't know what I was doing, but it kind of opened a door for me to get more involved with other stuff, because later on, about like a year later or so, all the Choose Your Own Adventure books started coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was real heavy into those because I'd always been a pretty big reader. Started out with Conan and everything else. And TSR started putting out all of their little Endless Quest books, and I think the first ones were by Rose Estes. In fact, the first one I bought was Return to Brookmere by Rose Estes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a cool thing, the whole adventure idea. But of course, at that time, everybody was like, oh no, D&D is satanic, it's evil, and, you'll go to hell, it'll make you kill all your parents and your friends and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were like right in the middle of the satanic panic.
Yep.
And then just by fortune one day, I was, one of those kids who pretty much, both parents were working, and I, was at daycare and that kind of stuff. So our daycare at that time was like the local YMCA. And just kind of by chance one day, somebody had left the Red Moldvay book. And it was just kind of abandoned. Somebody had, I guess, forgotten it, left it there. And it kind of fell into my hands because,
Mm-hmm.
9 or 10 years old, I don't, find something like that, started reading it, and that was kind of my whole introduction to D&D right there. Started picking up basic adventures and stuff like that, and right after that, and
mm-hmm.
trying to figure out how it worked.
There's nothing quite like the
Uh-oh. Ryan kind of froze up for me. I don't know if he froze up for everybody else. No, Legion of Myth, I didn't kill my parent with a Burning Hand spell. And I always wondered where that Mind Bondage spell was. I never did find that in the spell books. Hey, welcome to the T-Shirted Historian show now. Thank you very much. This is my show now. So, let's take a look at our guests out there today. We've got Maliki. Hey, Maliki, nice to see you. We've got Jeffro Johnson. I've run into you a few times on Twitter. Legion of Myth, Max, how are you? And Full Metal Dragon. Hey, good to see you. Dynamo Ned. Hey. You remember that Darkest Dungeons chick tract? Yeah. That was something. I remember I had relatives and stuff who were handing me those and copies of the old Crusaders comic book and everything else, telling me about the evils of Dungeons and Dragons and heavy metal music, and I was just kind of like all into both of those things. So, yeah, this is Monday in Geek now. Yes, that's right. I took over. It's all me. But yeah. Those were the days, the Satanic Panic. And how many of you guys also had metal to go along with your D&D back then? I'm just curious. Because to me, it always seemed like there was a correlation, because heavy metal music always had this kind of fantasy motif to it, no matter which artists you really liked, especially if it was the British guys like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Ozzy Osbourne. Those guys, not only did they kind of mess around with the occult stuff with the lyrics and things, but the fantasy elements were also there. Especially when you got to bands like Manowar, where they had the beautiful Ken Kelly covers. God, I remember those. You got into classic rock and then the metal. Yeah. Speaking of classic rock, I remember the most D&D looking album cover I ever saw was Hair of the Dog by Nazareth. You guys get a chance to take a look at that thing. I'm like, whoa, that thing was so cool back then. Legion of Myth, you weren't allowed to play D&D. You played Battletech, Robotech, and TMNT back then, and you won't embarrass yourself with the music you listened to back then. Come on, Legion of Myth. You were big into New Wave, weren't you? You were a New Wave guy. Full Metal Dragon, you always associated metal with urban fantasy and cyberpunk. Yeah, me too. I did too. And it still kind of does now, even. Not a fan of the song, but it is a cool album. Yeah, it is a cool album cover. It is. And then I saw the Molly Hatchet album covers. You know, like Death Dealer, of course, you know, which was for Zeta. And they had another one that was the same cover that was used on an Elric of Melniboné painting. That thing was just awesome. Queensryche fan. Bon Jovi. Oh, no. Not hair metal. Please, not hair metal. Your mom banned D&D too, so you started with other RPGs? Yeah. Ryan must be, like, totally restarting his entire system or something. Let's hope, You think he lost internet? Dude, roll out some hot RPG takes. Time is wasting. Okay, some RPG hot takes. What is a hot RPG take? Virtually anything you say these days is a hot RPG take. Like, if I say, descending armor class is better than ascending armor class, I'm going to get, like, a whole flurry of nerds coming after me going, and then trying to explain mathematically why that is. And of course, there's other hot takes like I've seen DMs who want to use 2die10 instead of a d20 because it creates more of a curve. And I know that it creates more of a curve. It's not, it's not flat like a d20. But what happens is when the reason they want to do that is because when you get natural ones or you get 20s, it becomes more of a rarity, and therefore it's something more spectacular to reward. Oh, he lost power. Okay. Wow. Kind of wonder how long do I need to hold his show out? He usually goes for an hour. I don't know how exciting I can be for an hour, but let's just take a look at what the fans have to say. In high school, we could not have a D&D club from 92 to 96. Yeah, I believe it. Give us some more hot takes. Let's see. You guess you're the odd one out. Your DM used a lot of classical stuff. Hall the Mountain King, Gustav Holst's The Planet, stuff like that. Yeah? That is kind of cool. The group I currently hang out with and play with, I've been playing with them since the 90s. The early 90s. And that DM does not like music in a game. He thinks it detracts from it. And I guess it detracts from him. So, for whatever reason, we've just gotten used to not having it. Although I really miss it, and I forgot how much it really adds to a game. So whenever I started running my stuff on YouTube, I always put some music on in the background, just to kind of set the tone. I broke Ryan. Good job. Best way to ghost a guest. Yes, it was. It was. Hot take being Legion of Myth right now. Not hot water, more like. But 5d4 or go home. No. 2 die 10, you cannot get a 1 and you bell curve with it. Yeah, I know, Maliki. I know, you do get a bell curve. But that's why I said, it's like, it makes the crits more spectacular when you do get them, because the odds of getting the 2 die 10s, or the 2 10s on the die 10s is a lot more difficult than the flat, randomness of a d20. Speaking of which, we do have one guy at our table who holds the record for the number of crits, and I kid you not, dudes, seriously, he rolled 10 natural 20s in a row, one after the other. Would not have believed it had we not seen it. His dice weren't loaded. There was nothing special. But it was just kind of like one of those weird, twists of fate, because it was a big epic campaign going on. He had to make these really super duper high saving throws. Otherwise it might have, it was one of those end of the world campaign type things where the DM was going to destroy his whole campaign world if these, if he'd ever failed one of those dice rolls. And, everybody who was at that game still talks about it to this day. No, it wasn't a loaded dice, Full Metal Dragon. It was not a loaded dice. He just did it. It's the most spectacular thing I've ever seen. I've never been able to replicate that. Although I did once, to prove a point, rolled a d20 20 times and did not score a 20 even once. Be exciting for one take. I am exciting. Legion of Myth. I waded in on the TMNT Kickstarter comics. Okay, to be honest, I kind of like 2 die 6, like Classic Traveler. The 2 die 6 systems are okay. I don't like the curve in 2 die 6 systems because 7 tends to be the big curve. So what I see happen with 2 die 6s a lot, especially if you have opposition dice, you tend to end up with a lot of ties. So I'm not a fan of 2 die 6. I think you need a little bit more variation. So I'm honestly all for a d20. I'm not gonna say that, Legion. Hey, Patty's Parlor. It's good to see you, man. Yeah, the game is built along an angle, not a bell curve. You're right. Yeah, that guy should have bought a lottery ticket that night. Yeah. We didn't have lottery back then, though. This was Texas. We didn't get the lottery until much, much later. Randomness is going to be a problem. Jeffro thinks I'm boring. I'm sorry, Jeffro. I'm just not as exciting as you are. Three die 6 is better? Huh? Okay, here's a hot take. Here's a hot take for you. And I'm going to ask this for the audience out there. What is your preferred method of character generation? Is it assign stats? Is it straight 3 die 6, take them as they come? Is it 4 die 6, drop the lowest? Or is it the other system I've seen where it's you roll all your stats, and then if you have like 1 or 2 stats that's below a certain mark, you can substitute it? I'm curious about that. See, our system, our game, we have switched over to doing set stats, and I think it's annoying. Mainly because it's like you end up with cookie cutter characters. And the sad thing is one of the stats is not an 18 or anything, so it's not like you're going to be spectacular in one spot and crap in the others or anything. It's just kind of like I think the numbers are like 16, 14, 12, 12, 10, or no, 16, 14, 14, 12, 12, 10, and I'm just kind of like, those are some really high stats overall. And they're like, well, you know, you get better modifiers and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I would like an 18 in something. You know, I don't mind taking 2 10s. Just give me an 18 on something. Rollin Bones, hey man, I got control of your show for a little bit. I'm trying to make it entertaining as I can, you know, for 21 minutes so far. Let's see, character generation. Something random, whether 3-6 or a life path. Anything not point-based. You know, I like the life path ideas. I think those are pretty sweet. Stuff like that, it almost kind of creates its own little game. Its own little mini game unto itself. I mean, yes, it slows down character generation if everybody, you know, if a character dies in the middle of the game and they have to generate a new character right away, because then it's like, oh god, I got to go through this life path crap in order to figure out what my character is. But stuff like that is really cool for, like, when they did it for Traveler, because my understanding is when the game designer did that for Traveler, his idea was generating characters was supposed to be kind of like a little fun mini game that you could do by yourself when there weren't any other gamers around. So yeah, I like Life Path. And as a matter of fact, I'm a really big fan of the old Central Casting books. Have you guys seen those? Those are sweet. And I heard that those are going to get a redo. And they're going to come back. But don't take that as gospel. Patty's Parlor. As someone who is a fan of trying a bunch of different systems, pre-gens. Okay, I don't like pre-gens, but I put up with the necessity of a pre-gen, especially if it's a one-shot. Because it's just kind of like, you know, there's no point getting invested in building a character that is only going to be there for one time. So, you know. Full Metal Dragon says Life Path for sure. Maliki says, I prefer random if the system offers it over point buy. A game like Savage Worlds, I'm fine with point buy. That's cool. Maliki rolled up a TMNT character today and used 4-6, dropped the lowest. You're starting to dislike that for Palladium's games. You were wondering, you thought T-Shirt was doing his regular T-Shirt open? No, I'm really not. I got introduced and everything, and then Ryan's power went poof. So I'm still here. Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Modifius uses Life Path, and you dig it. Creating an Achtung Cthulhu character with a mix of random rolls and picking was fun. Well, that's cool. I'm not a big fan of Modifius's 2-20 systems, but I will have to check out some of their Life Path stuff to see how good it is. Overall, Renegade Game Studios and Modifius kind of have rubbed me the wrong way. Starting with Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. Holy crap. That system was just... Okay. Not only did they mess the lore up, in my opinion, they kind of tried to sanitize all the stuff that was good about it. All the stuff that was edgy and nasty and cool. Because, that's kind of why you played Vampire back then, was to kind of walk the dark side and, be more monstrous and do the bad things to people. But apparently, we're doing kinder, gentler Vampire these days, where we don't want to offend anybody, despite the fact that you're playing a blood-sucking monster that, with the right powers, can twist somebody inside out and turn them into Picasso sculptures or something. I don't get it. But anyway, yeah. I was reading up on Twitter the other day how they're wanting to do more consent-based stuff in Vampire the Masquerade, and, especially when it concerns, sexy time. And my thought on that was, it was kind of like, Do you know what game you guys are playing? What game what audience you're trying to aim for? I mean, who's this target market now? If you want to sanitize and make vampire consensual and all this kind of stuff. Because the first problem they have is when they made the new vampire system, they added a new mechanic, which is every time you roll dice, you have to include one other dice that is off-colored, and this is called a hunger dice. And what happens is anytime you get a success on the hunger dice, you succeed at what you want to do, but if it's a case of where you succeed at a task with the hunger dice also being a success, you succeed, but you do it in the most horrible and destructive way possible. So it's kind of like if you just wanted to gently feed on somebody and kind of leave them asleep or something, you roll the hunger dice and it's like all of a sudden you're tearing the guy's throat out and splattering him across the walls and everything else, and you got fed, but you just did it in the worst way possible. And that just to me is counterintuitive to what they're wanting to do. I'm kind of like, you have a mechanic built into the game that disallows you from really having control over your character. It makes your character lose control arbitrarily by roll of the dice, whereas trying to shoehorn in all these consent things is kind of like you would have more control over that if you did not have this arbitrary dice. So why are you running this contraindicated rule in your setting and then complaining about it? It's dumb. I don't get it. To me, it seemed like a cop-out whenever I first started reading about it, because it was like saying, you're not really responsible for the horrible thing that your character does. Sometimes they just lose control for no reason whatsoever, and they just go crazy with the beast, and they just do horrible things to people. And I'm just like, I ain't buying it, man. I ain't buying it. You play vampire because you want the horror experience, you want the monster experience. It's, you need to be playing something else if you're that worried about offending somebody or bothering them with the monstrous stuff that you do. Okay? There are a lot of other games out there that will satisfy that itch. Vampire, not the game for you. And of course, what they've done with the lore now really pisses me off. Mark Reinhagen, been on my show a couple times. Well, three times, really. I talked to him about that, and he said, he told them, don't go beyond the original clans that are already in the book. Don't start making a bunch of new clans. So, what can you say about that? Let's see. Oh, Ryan's in the back. He says, let me know if you want to end the stream. I have no idea when my power will come back. How about we stop it here in a couple of minutes, huh? Well, let's see what the audience is saying about it. Odysseus rubbed you the wrong way with their terrible proofing of the deluxe Rangers of Shadowdeep. Yeah. Yeah, that's the company that's more interested in making money, not interested in making good games. Full Metal Dragon says they destroyed Werewolf the Apocalypse with their wokeism crap. Yes, they did. I think they destroyed it before that because I was really one of those guys who was not a big fan of World of Darkness. I hated World of Darkness. I should say, let me rephrase that. NWOD, New World of Darkness, where they told you, hey, guess what? All those green books that you bought, just throw those away. Throw all that stuff away, because now we have this brand new version of Vampire, and it has nothing to do with the old one. Yeah, we kept some of the same names, but these vampires are nothing like those. I totally checked out a White Wolf at that point. I I didn't even touch any of that crap. Wouldn't go near it. I heard a lot of people like that stuff, but not this puppy. Vampire Player's Book has a bunch of trash in it, stuff about stereotypes. Yeah. Renegade was not behind those rules. That was the company that White Wolf hooked up with first. Modifius, I believe, was who it was. You finally understand why Legion of Myth is upset over D&D 3E being commie fantasy? Really? I don't guess I understand that part of it. My biggest problem with 3E was they gave you a rule for everything, and I mean absolutely everything, in simulationist levels of detail, and required you to have it in order to play the game, to the point where it actually hinders players' choices, right? And here's the illustration I often like to use right here. It's like, okay, old D&D, if your character is on a balcony and they want to grab a rope, swing across to the other side while attacking somebody, or dodging arrows, or doing something crazy, something acrobatic and everything, the GM just kind of usually just would say, okay, well, there's not a hard and fast rule for that, so I'll just wing it. We'll just, roll a d20 and we'll see if it happens. Maybe another d20 for the attack roll at the other side. Right? Easy peasy, oversaid, done, gone. It succeeded or it failed, and it just created opportunities for players to want to do stuff. Okay, but then 3.0 came out, and it became just like a measuring contest. Okay, well, let's see. You're hopping on that rail, okay, so that's a 10-foot movement right there. So you only have 20 more feet of movement. Grabbing the rope is an action. You're swinging. So that's like, do you have enough movement to do that? Okay, and do you have another action left at the end where you can drop and do this? Because, and it broke the game down to be so ridiculous that it was just kind of like, I got to the point where I was like, man, I'm sick of this crap. I am so sick of this, because this is actually limiting my ability to role play. And a game shouldn't be doing that. A game should be about letting you do what you want to do. Or at least trying to do something that you want to do, And I don't necessarily think more rules is good. And I think the biggest crime that they did was when they broke down about how all the spells were created and how all the magic items were created. Because at that point, it opened up the game to people like my friend, who meticulously researched all that crap and started just, using that system to min-max and micromanage game, the way he built spells, the way he built magic items and everything else. And he got some ridiculous combinations. Plus, what didn't help at the time was with 3.0, it was a new system. They had just announced the OGL. Everybody and their mother was coming out with a new supplement, a new book, a new setting, a new race. It didn't matter. I mean, it was the golden era, as far as I'm concerned. The problem is, unless you had a GM who kept a really tight leash on all this new material being introduced into their campaign world, you ended up with stuff that was so broken that it just, it defied logic, Because none of this stuff was necessarily meant to work together the way that people were shoehorning it together. And my DM, being the cool guy that he is, tried to make everybody happy by allowing everything in. And unfortunately, what that meant was people took advantage of it, and they continue to take advantage of it, and they have ruined the game. For me, anyway. So, do I think 3.0 is a good system? Yes and no. I think it's an okay system. I think it needs work. Anyway, I I guess that's really all I have to say. Ryan, if you want to go ahead and end it here, that's cool. Maybe we can try this again another time. Otherwise, hey, I'll see you guys later. It's been good being on. I didn't get the interview, but hey, it's nice to see some of y'all again. Sub to my channel, help me get to 1,000.